When experts first arrived at a ruined 12th-century castle in western Ukraine, they believed they were walking into a familiar story of medieval decay. The castle, long reduced to broken towers and weathered stone walls, had been studied many times before. Historians assumed that whatever secrets it once held had already been lost to time, war, and collapse. But this assumption changed when researchers noticed signs that something beneath the ruins had never been explored. As archaeologists began their careful survey, they discovered a narrow shaft hidden within one of the damaged towers. At first glance, it appeared unimportant, like a crack caused by centuries of erosion, yet the edges were too smooth and too precise to be natural. Even more surprising was the presence of soot on the stone, a clear sign that fire had once been used inside. This single detail raised immediate questions. Medieval castles were designed for defense, not careless burning inside enclosed spaces. The team realized that this shaft might lead to a sealed room untouched for hundreds of years. As news spread, historians, local residents, and researchers watched closely. The idea that a hidden chamber had survived beneath the castle sparked excitement and debate. What lay below could challenge long-held beliefs about medieval life, warfare, and engineering. This was no longer just a ruined fortress. It was becoming a doorway into a forgotten chapter of history, sealed away since the Middle Ages. To understand why this discovery mattered so much, it is important to understand the castle's history. Built in the 1100s, the fortress stood on a high hill overlooking a river that served as a major trade and military route. Control of this location meant power, wealth, and protection. Over the centuries, the castle changed hands many times, passing between local princes, foreign rulers, and rival empires. Each new owner strengthened the defenses to meet new threats. Walls were thickened, towers rebuilt, and battlements expanded. Warfare itself was changing, especially with the arrival of gunpowder in Eastern Europe between the 14th and 16th centuries. Cannons and firearms transformed how battles were fought. Old wooden defenses became useless, and even stone walls were no longer enough on their own. Castles had to adapt or fall. Historians long believed that most Eastern European fortresses were slow to adjust to these changes. They were thought to rely on basic solutions rather than advanced engineering. The discovery of a sealed underground space directly challenged this belief. If the castle contained a hidden room designed to manage fire and smoke, it suggested that its builders understood the dangers and power of gunpowder far earlier than expected. As archaeologists carefully cleared the shaft, they confirmed that it was not a simple hole or drainage channel. The stones blocking it were deliberately placed and older than the rubble surrounding them. This meant the shaft had been sealed on purpose, long before the castle fell into ruin. When researchers lowered lights into the opening, they saw that it led down into a deep vertical passage. The depth alone suggested that it connected to a larger space below. Once the team safely entered the chamber, they were struck by its condition. Despite centuries of isolation, the room was remarkably intact. Thick stone walls surrounded a rectangular space that felt more like military installation than a storage cellar. The most striking feature was the soot covering parts of the walls and ceiling. It was not random or accidental. The soot formed clear patterns, rising toward a narrow ventilation channel carved into the stone. This showed that fires had been lit repeatedly in the same place, and that medieval builders had planned a way to release smoke safely. Such careful design was rare for the time and strongly suggested controlled use of fire, most likely connected to gunpowder or weapon preparation. The room's construction provided further evidence of its purpose. Engineers measured the thickness of the walls and found them far stronger than those in ordinary castle rooms. The stone layers were arranged to absorb pressure, a design choice that made sense only if explosions or intense heat were expected. Along the walls, researchers noticed small carved recesses. These were not decorative. Their size and spacing suggested they were used to hold tools, weapons, or containers. The floor offered another important clue. Beneath layers of dust, faint marks showed signs of repeated heavy movement. These marks lined up in straight paths, as if wooden frames or carts had been pushed back and forth many times. Taken together, these details told a clear story. This was not a prison, treasure room, or secret hiding place for valuables. It was a workspace, a place where dangerous materials were handled with care. The room was designed to support military activity while protecting the rest of the castle from accidents. This level of planning showed that medieval engineers were not only skilled but forward-thinking. The existence of such a chamber raised an important question. Who used it? This was not a space for ordinary soldiers. Handling gunpowder required training, experience, and strict control. The people who worked here would have been specialists: gunners, engineers, blacksmiths, and powder handlers. Their jobs were essential but risky. Gunpowder was unstable and sensitive to moisture and sparks. A single mistake could destroy part of the fortress. By placing this work underground, the castle's defenders reduced the risk of fire spreading to living areas or weapon stores. The ventilation shaft allowed smoke and fumes to escape, while thick walls contained pressure. This design reflects a deep understanding of both danger and efficiency. It also suggests that the castle's leaders valued these specialists, even if their work remained invisible to those above. Without such preparation, a fortress could fail during a siege. No matter how strong its walls appeared, as researchers continued their investigation. They made a discovery that reopened old local legends. In one corner of the chamber, they noticed a narrow gap in the stonework. At first, it looked like damage caused by time or war, but closer inspection revealed straight edges and careful shaping. Behind the wall was a hollow space that echoed when tapped. This suggested that the chamber might connect to something more. For generations, local stories had spoken of tunnels beneath the castle. These tales described secret passages used for escape or movement during sieges. Historians had long dismissed these stories as folklore. There was no physical proof. Now, the shape gap forced experts to reconsider. Some argued that many medieval castles across Europe had tunnel systems, and this discovery fit that pattern. Others urged caution, warning that one opening did not prove an entire network. Still, the possibility alone changed how scholars viewed the site. The sealed chamber was no longer an isolated feature. It might be part of a larger underground system waiting to be explored. The discovery sparked intense debate among experts from different fields. Archaeologists focused on the physical evidence, mapping every stone and measuring every surface. Engineers studied stress patterns and construction methods. Historians returned to old texts, searching for forgotten references to underground structures. Even cultural researchers examined local legends, considering whether stories passed down through generations might preserve real memories of the past. This debate was healthy and necessary. It showed how one discovery could challenge accepted ideas and encourage new questions. Importantly, the discussion remained careful. Researchers emphasized that speculation must never replace evidence. The chamber itself was already a major find, proving advanced military planning in a period often underestimated. Whether or not tunnels existed, the room alone reshaped understanding of medieval warfare in the region. After the initial excitement, attention turned to preservation. A sealed room survives for centuries because it is protected from air, moisture, and human contact. Opening it introduced new risks. Conservators worked quickly to stabilize the chamber. They monitored humidity, installed temporary supports, and documented every surface using modern imaging tools. The goal was to learn without causing damage. Public interest grew rapidly, but experts warned against rushing. Tourism, vibration, and temperature changes could destroy fragile evidence. This careful approach reflected a new respect for the site. The chamber was not just an attraction. It was a rare window into the past, offering direct proof of how medieval people adapted to changing warfare. For historians, it provided a physical blueprint of early gunpowder management. For engineers, it showed creative solutions developed long before modern science. In the end, the sealed room beneath the 12th century castle revealed far more than anyone expected. It showed that medieval builders in Eastern Europe were not simply reacting change, but actively innovating. They understood the dangers of new technology and designed spaces to control it. The chamber challenged old assumptions, revived forgotten legends, and opened the door to new research. Whether future studies uncover tunnels or not, the discovery has already earned its place in history. It reminds us that the past still holds secrets beneath our feet, waiting patiently for the moment when someone looks closely enough to find them. Beyond the immediate discovery, The sealed chamber also forces historians to rethink how knowledge and technology moved across medieval Europe. For a long time, many scholars believe that advanced military engineering spread slowly from Western Europe toward the East. Innovations such as reinforced gunpowder rooms, controlled ventilation, and explosion-resistant design were thought to appear first in major Western fortresses, and only later in Eastern regions. However, the chamber beneath this castle suggests a more complex reality. The builders who designed it clearly understood the risks of gunpowder and developed solutions that matched or even exceeded those used elsewhere at the time. This raises a possibility that knowledge traveled through trade routes, military alliances, and shared conflicts more quickly than previously assumed. Engineers may have learned from foreign mercenaries, captured specialists, or direct observation during warfare. The castle stood in a region where cultures met and clashed, making it a natural place for ideas to mix. In this sense, the chamber is not only a military structure, but also evidence of intellectual exchange. It shows that medieval innovation was not limited by geography, and that local builders were capable of adapting global ideas to their own needs. Another important aspect of the discovery lies in what was missing from the chamber. Despite its clear military purpose, researchers found no weapons, no powder containers, and no tools left behind. At first, this absence puzzled the team, but over time, it began to make sense. If the chamber had been sealed intentionally, its contents were likely removed first. This suggests an organized and deliberate closure rather than a sudden collapse or abandonment. The castle's defenders may have decided to seal the room during a period of reconstruction or retreat, taking valuable materials with them. Alternatively, the chamber could have been closed after becoming unsafe, once gunpowder storage methods changed or the fortress lost its strategic importance. The careful sealing indicates awareness of danger. Leaving gunpowder or damaged equipment behind would have been risky. This reinforces the idea that the people responsible were knowledgeable professionals, not careless occupants. Their decision to hide the room ensured that future generations would not stumble upon a hazardous space, even if that meant erasing part of the castle's own history. The discovery also changes how modern audiences view medieval life. Popular culture often portrays the Middle Ages as a time of crude tools and simple thinking. Castles are imagined as stone shells filled with knights and banners, but little technical complexity. The sealed chamber challenges this image directly. It shows careful planning, risk management, and long-term thinking. Medieval engineers understood airflow, pressure, and material strength well enough to design safe spaces for dangerous work. They worked with limited scientific theory, relying instead on experience, observation, and tradition. Yet the results were effective. This room survived centuries of warfare and collapse, remaining structurally sound long after the rest of the castle fell apart. For modern viewers and readers, this is a powerful reminder that historical people were not less intelligent than those today. They faced different challenges, and they solved them with the tools available to them. Recognizing this helps bridge the gap between past and present, making history feel more human and relatable. Local communities have also been deeply affected by the discovery. For generations, residents living near the castle shared stories of hidden rooms and underground paths. These tales were often treated as entertainment rather than history. Now, the sealed chamber has given those stories new respect. While not all legends are proven true, the discovery shows that oral traditions can preserve real memories, even when written records are lost. This has strengthened local identity and pride. People feel connected to the past in a more tangible way, knowing that the stories told by grandparents may have roots in real events. At the same time, scholars emphasize the importance of balance. Folklore should inspire investigation, not replace evidence. The chamber represents a meeting point between memory and science, where both can inform each other. This relationship enriches historical research, making it more inclusive and culturally aware. Looking ahead, the sealed chamber presents both opportunities and challenges for future research. Advanced technology may allow experts to explore the suspected cavity behind the wall without physical excavation. Methods such as ground-penetrating radar, 3D scanning, and acoustic analysis could reveal whether tunnels truly extend beyond the chamber. These tools reduce the risk of damage while providing valuable data. However, even with modern methods, patience remains essential. Rushing to uncover more could destroy fragile evidence that survived for centuries precisely because it was left alone. Researchers must balance curiosity with responsibility. Each decision will shape how much of the castle's hidden history can be preserved for future generations. The chamber has already taught an important lesson. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries come not from forceful digging, but from careful observation and respect for what time is protected. Ultimately, the sealed room beneath the medieval castle stands as a symbol of hidden complexity. What began as a simple survey of ruins turned into a discovery that reshaped historical understanding. The chamber revealed advanced military planning, revived long-dismissed legends, and highlighted the intelligence of medieval engineers. It reminded scholars that history is never fully written, and that even familiar places can hold extraordinary secrets. Beneath broken stones and silent towers, the past waits patiently. When approached with care, humility, and curiosity, it can still speak with surprising clarity. This discovery does not mark the end of the story. Instead, it opens a new chapter, one that invites continued exploration, thoughtful debate, and a deeper appreciation of the people who built, defended, and ultimately sealed away this remarkable space centuries ago. The discovery has also encouraged historians to re-examine other medieval ruins that were once considered fully explored. Across Eastern Europe, many castles and fortresses were surveyed decades ago using limited tools and methods. At the time, researchers focused mainly on visible structures, such as walls, towers, and courtyards. Underground spaces were often ignored unless an entrance was obvious. The sealed chamber challenges this approach. It suggests that important features may still exist beneath sites long believed to hold no further secrets. As a result, archaeological teams are now discussing whether non-invasive surveys should be expanded to include older ruins. Technologies like thermal imaging, sonar scanning, and ground-penetrating radar can detect hidden voids without disturbing the ground. This shift could lead to new discoveries, not just of military chambers, but also of storage rooms, escape routes, and even living spaces that were deliberately hidden. The sealed room has become a reminder that history often hides in places we stop looking, and that patience and curiosity remain essential tools for understanding the past. Another reason this discovery stands out is its timing. In recent years, there has been growing interest in correcting simplified or outdated views of medieval history. Scholars now recognize that the Middle Ages were not a single, unchanging period of stagnation, but a complex era of adaptation and innovation. The sealed chamber fits perfectly into this updated understanding. It provides concrete evidence that medieval societies actively responded to new technologies like gunpowder rather than being overwhelmed by them. Builders experimented, improved, and learned from experience. This room shows trial, error, and refinement across decades. The layers of soot alone suggest long-term use and adjustment. Each generation likely modified how the space was used, improving safety and efficiency. This process reflects a scientific mindset, even if it was not described in modern terms. By studying spaces like this, historians can better appreciate how knowledge evolved gradually through practice. The chamber also highlights the role of individuals who rarely appear in historical records. Kings, nobles, and generals are often named in chronicles, but the engineers and craftsmen who made warfare possible remain anonymous. This underground room represents their work more clearly than any written text. Every carved stone, every reinforced wall, and every ventilation channel reflects practical decisions made by skilled workers. These people understood materials, heat, airflow, and risk through hands-on experience. They were problem solvers working under pressure, often during times of conflict. The sealed chamber preserves their legacy. It allows modern researchers to study medieval engineering from the perspective of those who built and used it, rather than those who commanded it. In this way, the room adds a human dimension to military history, shifting focus from power to skill. From an educational perspective, the discovery offers a valuable teaching opportunity. Museums, universities, and cultural institutions can use the chamber as a case study to explain how historians interpret physical evidence. Instead of relying only on texts, students can learn how soot patterns, stone placement, and where marks tell a story. This approach helps people understand that history is not just about dates and names, but about careful observation and reasoning. The chamber shows how small details lead to big conclusions. A narrow shaft becomes proof of ventilation. Darkened stone becomes evidence of repeated fire. Floor scratches become signs of daily work. These lessons make archaeology accessible and engaging, especially for younger audiences. By presenting the discovery clearly and responsibly, educators can inspire future researchers to approach the past with curiosity and respect and the wider cultural imagination. Discoveries like this often capture attention because they feel like moments of connection across time. Standing inside a sealed medieval room creates a powerful sense of closeness to history. The space was last used by people who faced dangers very different from those of today, yet their concerns were familiar. They wanted safety, efficiency, and survival. They designed solutions using the knowledge they had. The chamber becomes a silent witness to those efforts. For visitors and readers alike, this realization can change how history feels. It becomes less distant and more personal. The room is not just a structure. It is evidence of human thought, effort, and adaptation preserved in stone. As research continues, experts remain careful about managing expectations. While the possibility of tunnels is exciting, they emphasize that discovery is a slow process. Scientific investigation values accuracy over speed. Each hypothesis must be tested against evidence, and each conclusion must remain open to revision. This disciplined approach protects the integrity of the research and ensures that public interest does not lead to misinformation. The sealed chamber itself serves as a reminder